So just going back to $1 million biller, which is obviously super impressive, I'd love to hear like what were some of your daily routines or long-term strategies that you implemented that the listeners could also implement too?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there's a combination of things, but one of the biggest hacks that I have is community groups. Now, people see what I do on LinkedIn and personal branding and think that that's where it started, but actually that's not at all where it started. I first started building community groups about 10 years ago. Probably 12 years ago, actually, when I was recruiting in the aviation sector. And back then I was using Facebook groups, not LinkedIn. And what I would ultimately do is I would create these groups of aircraft engineers, aircraft mechanics. So depending on the licenses that they had, I would put them in these special groups. And what then happened is when I got jobs in, I would post in these groups, get them to tag their friends. I would get them to comment if they were interested. And I would basically just fill dozens of roles a day off the back of that strategy alone. So what I found is other agencies were spending their time going through job boards, like starting their talent pools again. And I already had these talent pools. Like every single person in the aviation space that had these licenses was in my group. I'd mapped them out over a really long period of time. I had people from all different countries in there that would fly to London. So it was literally a case of me just making sure that if I had access to people, I could fill the roles. And community groups from Facebook is how it all started. And then I transferred and pretty much used that same strategy for LinkedIn, and then also my school community group now as well. So it's just a case of making sure if you don't have access to talent, you can't fill roles. You have to have the access. And if you can have fast access, you can earn an unlimited amount of money.
Love it. So you literally found talent pools that no one's got access to.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So you've obviously built a strong brand through the community. Like, how did that become a central part of your business strategy? And how can the listeners incorporate that again into their strategy?
Yeah, so I would say, honestly, even though I can work at speed, I'm very time poor, just like any other recruiter.
Yeah.
And I needed a way to nurture people, a lot of people, quickly. So this was my way of adopting what's called the one-to-many method that I now teach recruiters. But ultimately, I found out about this through mentors who scale marketing strategies and can ultimately generate an unlimited number of leads. And I applied it to recruitment, where I would nurture funnels. I would basically going back, I would put them all into the funnel, which is the community group. Then I nurture them at scale, and then out the other end pops X amount that are interested.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that's how I do it. I set people up under a funnel. Once they're in my ecosystem, they don't leave my ecosystem. This is what I say to my team all the time. If people are leaving our ecosystem, why? Where are they going? Because if they're leaving our ecosystem, another company can nurture them. So my advice to recruiters would be, if you're speaking to clients or candidates, don't just disregard them because you can't help them right now. How are you putting them in your sequence or your funnel or your nurturing pools for months to come? And how can you do that at scale better than anyone else? That's really the only way that you're going to be able to automate your time, increase your revenue at the same time as well.
No, that's great. How could they get started?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the most obvious one in most markets. Facebook groups in some more blue collar or temp roles, junior temp roles, that works really well for. But typically LinkedIn is the best shot for community groups.
Yeah, great. And that would be LinkedIn posting, or would it be private groups?
Yeah, so you can definitely do your own private group. I do find on LinkedIn they're not the most effective. So in the way I'm describing this at the moment would be like your personal page, like build your own community of followers and connections and people that know what you do, nurture them through content. And you can also set up sequences through your outbound strategy as well. Yeah,
great. Like I've seen heaps of your posting, right? And you do come across like really authentic. Like, how do recruiters actually stay authentic when posting?
Yeah, you know what? It is a tough one, because I think even taking the step to put yourself out there online and be vulnerable is a big step. Like, it's a lot for most people, and it doesn't come naturally. So the way that I like to think about it is I always try to post content that I feel confident talking about. If I don't know about it, for example, if you told me to talk about like payroll services, like you're an expert in tomorrow, my post would be hesitant. It wouldn't quite make sense. It wouldn't quite resonate because I'm not an expert in that area. But the things that I post about, I know and I understand, and you could ask me any question about it and I can typically answer it. So the key to being authentic is don't try and create a character. Who are you? Who do you help? What knowledge and skills do you have? And how can you communicate that at scale? If you can do that, then it becomes a lot easier to be authentic and show up. And a little hack that I have as well is when you're writing out your content, if you are like, this doesn't sound so much like me and this is not so authentic, read it out aloud in your own voice and speak it aloud as if you're speaking to a friend, and then change the terminology based on the words that you use. That's another way to make it sound you, which is really important when building a community.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I always struggle with posting.
Do you?
Yeah. I'm very ad hoc. If I post, I get really good engagement.
Yeah.
And I might do it for like 2 or 3 weeks and then I'll probably stop again. And it's just getting in that routine to actually post.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get my sales team to do it, so I should really follow from the front. But yeah, it is really hard to get into a routine and put yourself out. I think even when you do know what you're talking about, I still have doubts.
Yeah.
And
of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Well, you need a strategy as well.
I do
if
need
you're
a strategy.
just posting ad hoc here and there, unless your brain's having a creative power hour, you're just winging it. And if you're winging it, the reality is you're not really going to convert. If you had a step-by-step strategy where you're like, on Mondays, I know to share education. On Wednesdays, I'll tell a story. On Fridays, I'll entertain my audience and give a little bit of personality to my profile. If you can have some form of structure like that, it becomes a lot easier to, number one, think of ideas, and number two, actually show up consistently as well.
Yeah, great. That's really nice advice. So just moving on, so the recruitment industry has changed massively. So what's changed the most about how we generate leads and win business?
Yeah, great question. And honestly, I think there's been so many changes in the last few years, definitely since COVID, but honestly, the last 2 years, biggest changes. Things have become more automated. There's a lot more options out there. Recruitment is competitive. There's so many recruiters who do the same thing. And I don't like using that term too often because we do all have our own unique selling points, believe it or not. But because we're all kind of showing up in the same way, we're generating leads in the same way in a competitive space. So the key is really making sure that you understand who exactly you help, and when you know who you help, what exactly do you help them with? When you know what exactly you help them with, then you can think about how you help them. If you have a really clear message around those 3 factors, you can then go to market with your pitches, with your content, with the way you do outreach, even if that's just cold calling, but you're really confident. I call this wow statements. You can be really confident in your wow statement around your offering, and that's how you can generate leads. And there's actually 35 different methods to generate leads that people assume it's just, the standard seek ads, emails, phone, but there's actually 35 ways. And most of them are marketing related. So if you're not marketing yourself, you'll struggle. Yeah.
What would be your wow message?
My wow statement.
Wow statement, sorry.
All right, you ready for it?
Go on, I'm ready.
I help busy and burnt out recruiters generate leads, increase their revenue, automate their time through sales and marketing strategies.
Love it. I'm in. Sign me up.
That's it. Well, you need some branding. So yeah.
I do, clearly. Thanks. So you're saying that everyone's potentially doing like the same type of activity. How could a recruiter shift that and change?
They need to learn how to market themselves. So the process of business development is business development. You reach out to people, you have conversations, you get meetings, you close. That's all. It is what it is. You can't change that. But having a look at that front end stage of the funnel of how you're marketing yourself, how you're creating brand awareness, that's, if people don't know you, they physically cannot work with you. So my entire strategy is around getting as many people know who I am, what I do, and how I help. The more people that know that, the more options I have. Then I put them into a community group to automatically nurture. And then I've got tens of thousands of people available that would speak to me.
What type of content are you nurturing those leads and groups with?
Yeah, so a whole range, to be honest. So also this is where I look at the personality types of my audience. We're getting very complex now. So I'll definitely give you that high level overview.
Yeah, high level is fine.
It takes me a good hour or 2 to teach this usually, but as a high level, some people are more emotional. And it said that 70% of people on average make decisions based on emotion and 30% based on logic. So why that's important to know is I post content and give advice that taps into emotions, motivators, and what people want from their life. Sometimes, and about 30% of the time, I post based on logic, statistics. I make things make sense. So my content is ordered in a way that's going to tap into the mindset of anyone who's in my network. Dependent on how they receive information doesn't matter, because certain posts will apply to certain people.
Nice. And you mentioned before, only 5% of recruiters love their BDM strategy.
Yes.
Is that true?
I recently found this out actually from JobAdder. So
Right.
I did a joint webinar with JobAdder and got some back-end access to their stats, and 5% of recruitment agencies are happy with their BD strategy, which I found crazy. I
Wow.
didn't know that. Yeah.
That means a massive opportunity for you.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I didn't realize quite how big the opportunity was actually until I saw that, and I was like, oh, interesting.
That is such a powerful stat. And it obviously shows how important it is for recruiters to invest in branding.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Most people aren't. And honestly, just speaking to people, it's so rare to find someone that's like, yeah, nailed it, crushing it, no issues. Like everyone's got an issue or a question or a roadblock somewhere in their sales process. So
Jess, you've given us some amazing advice today, but what we typically do on the podcast is provide one piece of advice. So if you could provide one piece of advice to a recruiter who would love to become that $1 million biller and improve their branding, what would that be?
Great question. So the number one thing that I would say is find a way to generate leads at scale. So I'm a huge advocate for the one-to-many method, which I talk about a lot. But essentially, if you don't learn how to generate leads at scale, you're always going to be running around on that hamster wheel, chasing leads one by one. People are slipping through the cracks. That one gun candidate that you just forgot about could be the perfect candidate. So find a way to build a community, whatever platform you choose. I vote LinkedIn, but whatever works for you, and nurture your audience again and again and again. Be known in that market, be valuable in that market, and opportunities will find you. Yeah, no, amazing. Jess, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. If you want to reach out to Jess, they can reach you on LinkedIn. Would that be the best place? Yep, LinkedIn, just Jessica Kimber. Yeah, amazing. And we've got an exciting partnership coming up with Jess. So watch this space. And thanks so much for listening. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Jess.